Over the past few months, a lot of really good laptops came out in the low to mid-range market, most of them being Ryzen laptops, but some of them, like the HP Omen 15, had other big improvements like thermals that could maintain full 90 watts of Intel Turbo Boost indefinitely, or a 4K 120Hz screen on a laptop. Now, that's not very practical. It would destroy your battery life, and you'd need some serious performance to actually run games at 4K 120 frames per second. But as tech enthusiasts, it's nice to appreciate the tech, even if it's not something that we would purchase. The laptop that I'm going to be talking about today doesn't have anything crazy that makes it stand out from everything else, but I think this is going to be a very good option for a lot of people because the things that gamers and enthusiasts primarily care about, like performance and upgradability, this thing does exceptionally well without being overly expensive. It's $1,200 for the configuration I'm reviewing, which is also the one that I would recommend as a default, and that will set the context for this review. The build and construction remains the same as last year. I believe the screen is made of plastic because of how soft it is, and I also got some comments asking if this is something to be concerned about. The only thing that I would look out for in terms of build quality are poorly designed hinges. Hinges like this and this are known for completely breaking after a couple months. I've even got a ton of comments about this on my Dell G3 review, but in general, good build quality is just something nice to have on any product. It makes it feel more premium. The keyboard deck is made out of aluminum and feels well built. For the surface, I believe it's an anodized finish because one, it feels pretty nice. It doesn't feel like cheap paint. And two, there's like no extra thickness when you transition from the unfinished chamfer. If you look a bit closer, you might notice that the top case is actually just a thin sheet of aluminum that they bend over for the sides. It's not really a deal breaker, like it is a $1,200 laptop, but I think it's good to know how manufacturers implement metal into the construction of their laptops. The hinge is a bit on the looser side, so there is a fair amount of screen wobble. There's no option for a touchscreen or anything, so I don't really consider this a concern, but it is something that I noticed. Okay, let's talk about the keyboard next. This uses a 96% layout, so you have a number pad to the right and everything is shifted over to the left. The Triton 500, which is like their next tier up, it's their premium thin and light gaming laptop, that uses a 65% layout, but the switches, keycaps, and spacing between each key appear to be, as far as I can tell, identical between the two. In terms of typing experience, the key travel is about average for a laptop, not like a gaming laptop specifically, like just in general for any laptop. It's not particularly shallow or deep, and the tactility is a little bit soft. Any softer, and I'd probably call it mushy. Now, this is the good part, right? So I type with all 8 fingers and my thumb, and I also type fairly fast so I don't press the keys with a lot of force. And I've noticed during my use of this, both while typing up the script for this review and while gaming, sometimes the keys just don't register if I either press it too lightly or if I press near the edge of the keycap. I have experienced this issue with I think 4 or 5 other laptops, so despite the fact that I'm 99% sure it's just because of the way I type, it's infrequent enough that I will mention it if I notice this. If you poke with your index finger, this shouldn't be an issue because it's a lot easier to miss a key with your pinky finger than with your index finger, but that's just my experience. The trackpad on this is pretty good. If I had to throw a number on the tracking accuracy, I would give it like an 8 out of 10. It suffers mostly with small movements, so for the most part, I haven't had any issues with the tracking. I'm not sure what material the surface is made of, but once you give it just a little bit of finger oil, it becomes very smooth. You'll still get a bit of this sticking effect when you try and use drag and drop, but for the most part, the friction and resistance does go away. The unit that I'm reviewing is configured with a 1080p 144Hz panel, and there's nothing really to note about it. It's pretty much the same as any other 15-inch 144Hz panel. In terms of image quality, it's a fair bit brighter than the panel from last year. I measured 250 nits with that one and 300 nits on this new one. It's bright enough for indoor use, but not where there's sunlight, so like in a coffee shop with big glass walls. The color accuracy is actually pretty good. It didn't really change after I calibrated it. I also tested for ghosting, no issues there. It's just an average, decent looking 144Hz panel. There's a pair of downward firing speakers on this. I don't think they sound very good, to be honest. They're definitely an area Acer chose to cut costs with. The bass response is pretty much non-existent. It sounds very hollow. And if you listen at full volume, the treble gets a bit too aggressive and it starts to pierce my ears, kind of like claws on a chalkboard. It also gets very loud, but if you drop it down to something more reasonable, like 70% volume, they sound fine for YouTube videos. And when I say fine, I mean I'm not particularly disappointed for laptop speakers. For ports, you have an Ethernet jack, 2 USB-As, a headphone jack. On the right is a mini display port, HDMI 2.0, a third USB-A port, a USB-C port that does not support Thunderbolt 3, unfortunately, and on the back is your charging port. Getting the bottom panel off was a bit of a pain because there's a bunch of clips holding it down and there's very little room to slip a PIC or a credit card into. But once you get it off, you will have access to 2 RAM slots, 2 M.2 slots, a 2.5-inch drive slot with an included SATA connector, and the Wi-Fi card. I just find it a little bit strange that they made it so difficult to get inside when there's so much expandability. In my last video, I got quite a number of comments asking if the RTX 2060 in the Omen 15 was a new 115 watt variant. Someone in the comment section also gave me the model numbers, so I checked, and both the Omen 15 and this new Helios 300 are running the new one. But it doesn't actually boost to 115 watts, it's more like 90 watts in games, and it doesn't seem like a thermal or a power limitation either because it comes with a 230 watt charger and the GPU runs at like 77 degrees. The thermals on this are also pretty good. It's a little bit better than similarly sized laptops like, for example, the Lenovo Y740 and the Blade 15. Those will do about 75 watts at 95 degrees, give or take about 5 watts, but this thing is able to dissipate 86 watts at 93 degrees. Pretty good. The battery inside is 60 watt hours, a little bit on the smaller side, and you should expect like 4 to 4.5 hours of battery life. That's sort of the compromise you have to make for that 2.5-inch drive slot, but it's something that I would personally take because it's not like you were going to get a full 8-hour workday out of a gaming laptop anyway. Not on an Intel version at least. Overall, I still like this laptop a lot for the same reasons I like the previous model. For gamers and enthusiasts, you get a 6-core i7 and an RTX 2060 for $1,200. The previous model had a 1660 Ti at the base $1,200 configuration, so this is even better in terms of performance per dollar. However, I think an even better move is to offer a 1660 Ti with a Ryzen 7 4800H for like $900 to $1,000. That's probably the sweet spot. If they manage to pull something like that off, I think that would be easily one of the most popular gaming laptops for 2020. There's very little to dislike about it, and it excels at performance, thermals, and upgradability for a reasonable price. One last thing that I want to mention before I end this video, my videos consistently get more views than my subscriber count, so if you like my videos, you should consider subscribing. It's free, and the more subscribers I have, the more likely companies will send me review units for laptops I otherwise can't get. For example, I haven't been able to find any of the new Dell XPS laptops, so I'm kind of just waiting for one to come to me. Other than that, I will continue to be a lazy bum, and my next video will be in approximately 10 days. I will see you then.